Traders, how are you? With Marcello. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. We have the United States having problems exporting food. We have the government of the United States testing the new programmable dollar, which is the new digital dollar. And we also have Elon Musk talking about this huge object that he's continuing to see in the cameras at SpaceX. Not a whole lot of news this week. Obviously, with the huge collapse and situation that we had, the heavy news week that we had last week with the collapse of FTX, not a whole lot of news this week. Things were a little bit calmer, but we did have some great nuggets of news that fall under the Conspiracy Marcello folder. Overall for the week, markets in the US and Canada were mostly negative. The Dow was negative 0.006%. The others were 1, 2, a little bit lower. In overseas market news, UK stock market has lost its position as the most valued stock market in Europe. This has to do with the devaluation of the pound, which is the currency in the UK. And also the surging sales at the French luxury goods maker called LVMH. That's what I think it's the third or fourth richest guy in the world that founded that. Louis Vuitton, Hermes, all those fancy things. Chinese shoppers account for 35% of global demand. And you guys know China is continuing to grow. And they have surged so far 22% in the French stock market. So now the French stock market is the most valuable stock market in Europe. European markets are mostly mixed. Istanbul was the biggest winner there. And Latin American markets mostly mixed as well. The Brazilian Bovespa was down over 3% on the news that they voted the new communist in Lula, which was in jail, by the way. Africa and the Middle East, mostly mixed as well, with Egypt being the biggest winner there. And in the far, far east, we have the Hang Seng out of Hong Kong at 3.84% positive. The big news this week, the programmable dollars that they're now testing, obviously, to help us. 12-week testing period with the New York Fed. If you guys don't know, the finances, we can call them, in our country, in the United States, and most other countries around the world are run by our central bank. The central bank is not a public institution. It is a private bank that is owned by all the lizard people. So they have different offices, and the New York Fed, which is one of the offices of the central bank of the United States, where supposedly all the gold is. A lot of conspiracies this week, so you're gonna have to sit down and manage with me, all right? So the office of the central bank of New York, which is the New York Fed, and 12 banking giants are launching a digital dollar test. Now listen to how amazing this is gonna be. They're gonna be able to issue you money that's going to expire, so you have to go out and spend it, right? You can't save. Wouldn't want that. They're going to be able to stop you from buying something. Oh, well, you had your allotment of meat this week, using too much carbon, right? So that's definitely coming. And in other news that I put in the political section, the nations of G20s are pushing the thing in your arm passports. I don't want to say the name because I don't want to get this account banned, just like the last one that they took down. But they want to put in basically health passports to, quote, facilitate future international travel. Remember when they were telling us that that was just a conspiracy theory? The future's amazing. Remember, preppers were right. So that's going to be very bad for all of us. I don't know how fast this is going to happen, but this is why I love, for example, gold and silver, because my silver is buried somewhere and they can't program it for me when I want to spend it. There's been $3.7 billion in cryptos that have been removed from exchanges last week. Obviously, this is from the huge fiasco at FTX, which is the second largest crypto exchange in the world that basically was just defrauding everybody and they went bankrupt. Monday morning, Bitcoin fell to a 2-year low, obviously because of the FTS fiasco. And now there's a class action lawsuit alleging that he, which is Sam Bankman-Friedman, and other high-profile celebrities violated Florida law and made consumers suffer with, they're seeking $11 billion in damages. Make the whole country like Florida. Bitcoin for the week is down 1.31% at almost 17,000. In commodities, this isn't really commodity news, but I thought it was pretty important. The LAX port, Los Angeles port, is the busiest port in the entire country. Because remember, everybody's ordering their babies from China. Because babies, everything's made in China, including the babies. Everybody loved that joke last week. So they're saying the port in the Los Angeles that October was their quietest month since 2009. Now, why is that really big news? Our economy and most other advanced economies around the world run on consumer spending. This is why we're having the inflation problem now, because the money printing that they started during the 2008 and 2009 crisis is finally starting to catch up with us. Why didn't it catch up under the previous presidents? Because the economy was growing at a much faster pace. So it was kind of just hanging on, I would say. But now it's coming to bite us in the butt because the economy isn't growing as fast. And obviously it's just a supply and demand issue, right? If there's too many dollars, the value of those dollars go down in value. Simple supply and demand. So going back to the economy situation, if almost 70% of the economy in the United States is based on consumer spending, and the volume of the busiest port of items that come into the United States had its quietest months of 2009, that means consumers are getting decimated, especially by the situation with inflation. So people are ordering less babies from China. That's not going to move the economy as much. Most of the world is in the same predicament. And if we don't have 70% of the economy moving, that means that everything is going to go downhill. So start ordering some babies from China, guys. Commodities from oil to corn jumped on Tuesday after the fake news that a Russian missile hit Poland. The reason why that's big news is because remember that Poland is part of NATO, and if you attack one nation in NATO, you attack them all. So that would literally launch to World War III. There was a huge fiasco. Zelensky, which is the president of Ukraine that keeps trying to instigate the war, said that they were from Russia, I think at the end of the day, what they're trying to do is instigate Russia even more to continue and actually launch a legit war. That's what I think is happening. But turns out it wasn't from Russia at all. They were actually Ukrainian missiles. U.S. crude went down over 11% for the week at $80.80. Brent crude, which is the international, went down almost 10% to $87.62. And gold and silver were also down. Gold was down 1.14% to $17.52, while silver was down over 3% at $21.05. And global demand for silver now is expected to rise 16% this year at 1.21 billion ounces, creating the biggest deficit in decades. Excuse me. Why is that a big deal? Silver is a much more industrial metal than people think. It's not just a precious metal like gold and silver where you wear jewelry or, you have silverware that are made out of silver. Silver is going into solar panels. And you guys know that we have a big push into the renewables. We also have a lot of silver that goes into batteries for electric vehicles. So the demand for silver is skyrocketing while we haven't been able to find enough mines to produce the silver, which creates a bottleneck effect, which means that silver should explode to the upside. The Silver Institute predicted that the deficit is going to be at 149 million ounces this year compared to last year, which is just 48 million. So it's literally the deficit is going to go up by 4 times. So eventually the move in silver is going to occur. That's why you guys that have been following me for a while know that I love trading the silver and the silver miners, swing trading more longer term. Financial and banking news, the Japan CPI hit 3.6% in October on an annualized basis, higher than expectations, and its quickest pace of increase since February 1982. So, no big difference in news there. Obviously, everybody's having the problem with inflation. And the UK Finance Minister, Hunt, is planning on taxing windfall tax and oil on gas firms. Amazing how they create the problems just to go ahead and solve them for them to get more money, right? So they in my view, we instigated this war with Russia. They went into Ukraine. We sanctioned all the things from Russia when in reality everybody needs their oil and gas, so they're actually doing better than before. And now because oil has gone up by so much, now we should tax the oil companies and give more money to the government. You see how it works? In political news, the G20, as I mentioned to you guys before, is pushing we'll call them health passports to facilitate future international travel. So if you thought that was a conspiracy, it's not a conspiracy anymore. Preppers were right. Trump is, I should have said Orange Man, because if I say that now, I'm going to be put on some lists. But Orange Man has decided to go into the running to be the Republican nominee for the next president. If he does win, he's going to be only the second president to win in 2 non-consecutive terms. Republicans also secured a majority in the House of Representatives when they got 118th seat. Hopefully they can put an end to all this spending so we can get this inflation under control. And Speaker of the U.S. House, Republican Nancy Pelosi, which is the third in line to the presidency, is saying that she's going to leave her leadership of the Democratic Party. She was basically the leader of the House of Representatives, which is why she's finally stepping down. She has been in a leadership position for the last 2 decades. Economic news, the weekless jobless claims have reduced to 222,000 and went down by 4,000 last week, which was less than expectations. And the housing market is absolutely getting butchered due to the high mortgage rates and also the high prices that continue to push buyers out. The National Association of Realtors is saying that this is the 9th consecutive month where home sales have gone down. Existing home sales have declined by 5.9% in September and have been down over 28% from a year ago. In corporate news, Target has gone down by over 13% after they reported an absolute crash of 50% of the Q3 profit. They're trying to clear through a lot of their unwanted inventory. A lot of these big kind of stores like Walmart and Target and Amazon, they all bought this huge amount of inventory. It's part of the reason why we initially had this inflation push. They bought everything because they thought everything was coming back online, and now a lot of people are not buying as much stuff, so they have to sell it at a discount. They're planning to try to cut $3 billion in total costs over the next 3 years. And speaking of cutting costs, the big tech layoffs continue now that Amazon is planning on letting go 10,000 positions as early as next week. Largest ever reduction in personnel for Amazon. If you guys don't remember, Facebook, everybody's reporting job cuts. Elon Musk said on Wednesday that he's planning to reduce his time as Twitter. He's trying to find a leader to help run it, adding that now that he's continuing the restructurization of the social platform is supposedly supposed to be done this week. And obviously a lot of Tesla investors are increasingly concerned about the amount of time that Musk is spending on Twitter rather than their electric cars. Health tech firm founder Elizabeth Holmes, which was the founder and major fraud pusher of the once billion-dollar valued Theranos, got more than 11 years in prison this week after a judge sentenced her to the amount of prison. And in trade news, this is actually a big piece of news. I started talking about the shortages, not the shortages, yes, the food shortages, and the word I'm looking for is the blackouts in 2020, right? I talked to you guys about how the next 10 years, the 2020s, we're going to have a lot of social problems, a lot of economic problems, a lot of environmental problems. Now, for the first time in decades, the United States, which is once one of the largest exporters of food in the world, is going to start importing food rather than exporting it. And obviously, farmers are having a serious problem with high energy costs, inflation, and even labor costs. And a lot of the inflation is simply eliminating all of their profits, so they're just not replanting their food anymore. Data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics said that energy costs have gone up by 41.6%. The price of tools went up by over 10%. New trucks have gone up by over 11%. And the price of rent or shelter has gone up almost 6%. And the cost of fertilizer, which is literally the stuff that they put on the plants to grow when you get the food at the grocery market, the grocery store, the fertilizer has gone up 45% year over year. In technology, Lyft and driverless tech firm Motional are going to start testing robo-taxis in Los Angeles. It's a second city now that they're testing it at, I believe, after Las Vegas. And in international news, we now are 8 billion people in the world. The UN stated that somewhere in the world now the 8 billionth person was born. And Buffalo hit by a huge 52 inches of snow that's over 6 feet. They had to move the Bills game to Detroit due to the amount of storm. This is the kind of stuff I think we're going to start seeing overall. And unusual facts this week, hundreds of sheep are walking in a circle in the inner portion of Mongolia in China. Mongolia is a country, but China has an Inner Mongolia region also, by the way. They're literally just walking in a circle. Nobody knows why. And Elon Musk has also revealed that SpaceX keeps detecting something massive in their missions. That's what I think is causing all the problems. So that's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions. Look at the camera there. And remember, the preppers were right.